Hey guys, this is Onan CCKA motor, and we're going to try a little project today to swap out this original 6-volt Onan coil, which is half dead, with a modern GM coil. This coil's used on GMs from the 80s to 2005 or something. It's like a 2005 Chevy IMPALA coil. I bought this on eBay, new old stock, $10.50. On the bottom, there's two plugs. In the car, it's supposed to be on a rack. So what I did is I got these terminals here. They're 3/16 inch male terminals, and they fit right into that hole. So you're supposed to run a ballast with this ignition, is what I understand. And I got this ballast here. It's from a 57 Chevy, Advanced Auto Parts, about $10, part number RU4, and it's a good old-fashioned porcelain ballast from a Chevy. So we're going to take out the original capacitor or resistor, whatever it's called, that's in the Onan that stepped it down to 6 volts, and we're going to put this in. And then the guy that I learned about this from says you should run 2 condensers. I bought 2 condensers here just off eBay. They're $4 a piece. Standard Auto Parts DR90T from a 1970 Chevy truck or something like that. So what I'm hoping I can do is take out this coil and mount this new coil in the same exact spot. It's about the same size. So the old coil is held down with this hose clamp, so we'll take that off, and we'll take off some of these wires here, and we'll see what we got cooking. Alright? Okay, so I got the old coil out, and I unhooked this piece here, which we don't need anymore, and I want to just point out a couple things. There's a wire here, this red one, that comes from the stator that went to the positive side of the coil, so we need to hook that back up to positive. This wire here comes in from the key switch and is also the hot wire, so just take note of your coil when you take it apart, which side is the hot side. The negative side goes to the points and condenser, so that's how you can tell. I wasn't sure which wire was which, so I used my voltmeter with the key in the on position, and this white wire came from the key, and that was hot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the ends off both of these wires. My coil here doesn't have a terminal on it where you can punch down 2 wires into one thing, so I'm going to have to make a splice into one connector. Now this coil has 2 inputs. They're not marked, and what I've been told is that it doesn't matter which side to use for positive or which side to use for negative. It does not matter. So what I'm going to try to do now is figure out a way to mount this coil down on this block like this or so, and it would be great. If it fit right into the factory spot, it wouldn't be a big deal. I'm probably going to mount it this way so it's more like factory. Now the coil has 2 bolt holes. You can put like a 1/4 inch bolt through it to fasten it, and that's what I'm going to figure out now. I might have to take another piece of metal and attach it to this plate and make a little adapter, if you will, to mount this thing up, but that's what's next. So we'll mount the condenser side onto the coil, and we'll mount the ballast resistor in there, and we'll see what we got. Now, I decided to put the coil in sideways, and what that will allow me to do is drill a hole right through here, and I can mount it in there. Also, the wires will be exposed in the back, and what that will allow me to do is the other mounting hole is right there. So I'm going to make a little piece of metal just go across the back that will bolt into this hole and then bolt into there, and that will allow me access to all my wires. It won't interfere with any of the throttle cable or anything with this ignition. It'll be great. And then for this ballast resistor, there's a hole in the frame right here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mount this ballast resistor on the inside of the frame right there. And there's enough slack in the feed from the key where this wire here will end up right by that hole, so I won't have to alter that wire at all. What I do need to do is make the wire from the stator longer so that both the stator and the hot wire from the key go to one side of this ballast resistor. Conversely, you could run the wire from the stator all the way back to the key switch and feed it back to the key switch that way. I'm going to take a shortcut and I'm going to put them both onto one side of this ballast resistor. The other side of the ballast resistor will feed the coil, so I'm going to make a short little wire that will go from over here to back here and plug into the coil. And then the other side of the coil is just going to go to the condenser box. So I'm going to cut the end of this wire off and solder one of those terminals on and push it right into the coil. The other thing I need to do is change the ends of my plug wires. The original coil has plugs that plug into the coil. This coil uses like a spark plug boot, so I'm going to cut these, take these off and crimp on a boot so they'll plug right on there. Alright. Okay guys, now what I've done here is I got everything hooked up. I took my wire from my stator and I soldered a extension on it with a piece of shrink wrap, and I ran that over here to my ballast resistor. And I also have my inside of a hot wire from the ignition on the same panel. Then I made this wire, which comes from the resistor back to the coil. And again, doesn't matter what side of the coil you mount it on, but I've got everything hooked up. I took off my old ends here and I crimped on some new ends and put some new boots on there. And what I've done is I just went out to Home Depot. I bought this little bracket here. It's a 5-inch long bracket. It costs $1.57. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make it so it fits back here to go between this bolt and over there where the other side is. So it only has one bolt holding it on right now. So that will go in there to support the coil a little better. What I didn't do yet is hook up the second condenser. I'm not going to bother with that for now. And I'm dying to know if this thing's going to work. So one other thing is that all these little connectors here are crimp connectors, but I soldered them also. I don't want any vibrations to loosen anything up. Make sure that there's no wires inside the way of your throttle connection here to your governor. You know, these are kind of hairy. They're close to it, but we should be pretty good here. So I'm going to try to fire this baby up. Now, what I didn't mention is that it's 11 degrees out, and it's about 40 in my barn here. And I'm hoping that, you know, this thing will start. It's so cold. We'll give it a shot. guys, to summarize, this Chevy GM coil worked great in the Onan. What I never told you was that on Kohler twin cylinders, Onan twin cylinders, both cylinders fire at the same time. They're 180 degrees off. One is what's called a wasted spark. So one, the pistons fire in a top dead center, the other, the pistons at the bottom of the stroke. But the coil fires both cylinders at the same time. There's no need for a distributor or anything like that. So this whole project cost me probably $35 to put this coil on there. It makes like 30,000 volts, whereas the original Onan coil cost something like $229, and it makes only less than 20,000 volts. So I highly recommend that you guys do this. It's real simple, came out great, and hopefully you learned something from this video.